Hello everyone, my name is Tubasa here, and today I'm going to be giving a guide on how to play Catalyst after her buff in Season 28. Now you might be asking, Tubasa, she's only been buffed for 6 hours. How in the world do you know how to play her? Well, I've been playing her this entire time. Yes, if you remember, I released a guide on how to play her in 2025, 7 months ago. That entire time I've still been playing her. I'm part of that 0.3% bit rate. But as you can see, this is kind of my standing here, so this is like my qualifications, if you will, for this guide. And I've spent a little bit of today kind of thinking about how you will want to be playing Catalyst, and let's get started. So I'm going to go over a quick warm-up, then I'm going to go over doors, I'm going to go over Catalyst spikes, I'm going to go over her wall, I'm going to then get into perks. I'm going to wrap that up by giving some more advanced tips on Catalyst, and then I'm going to talk about your ranked philosophy if you're playing ranked with her. And finally, I'm going to close it out with some unique interactions that Catalyst has between some of the other legends. All right, so real quick, warming up. Basically what I do is I take two guns that I am comfortable using, and I practice two things. I practice hip firing, like this, and then I practice recoil control, like this, just aiming. Literally do those two things for roughly maybe 5 to 10 minutes before you play. It'll help your aim tremendously. It's something that I've learned to do a lot because then I can practice doing stuff like this. All right. Next, we are going to move on to doors. So Catalyst can now catalyze 4 doors, which when I read that, I kind of dropped my jaw. The fact that she can do this is really great, but what I will say is this is not going to change that much of how you play Catalyst. The reason why I say that is because unlike Caustic and Watson, her doors being caddied are what I would consider passive, where Caustic traps and Watson fences are more active deterrents to let people into the building. So what I basically mean by that is, let's say there's this door here, right? And an enemy is sitting on this door. If there's a gas trap right here and I'm trying to kick it down, if I kick this door down, I'm going to get hit by that gas trap no matter what I try and do. I can still shoot it out, but I'm going to be slowed. I'm going to take 10 damage or however many damage Caustic Gas does, and I'm going to have to heal up possibly before I want to push in and wait for the gas to clear too. With Watson fences, it's relatively the same thing. I have to open the door, I'm stunned, and I take damage, and I have to shoot a fence out and then close it. I might want to heal in that instance, maybe not. With Catalyst doors, though, all they're doing is they're kicking it down. As soon as they kick the door down, they can just enter it and run. So there's nothing that's really making it a active deterrent for enemies to just continue going the path that they want to. And that's why I say that the way you want to play Catalyst is going to be relatively the same. And that's going to be, you're going to be wanting to play a building where it's relatively 1 or 2 floors and has a easy line of sights to all of your doors. Because even though we have 3 cat spikes, whatever that 4th door is, you might want to keep a line of sight on that. So for buildings in particular that I'm thinking this is going to be very useful for is going to be places like Lava Siphon. The top floor of that middle building in Lava Siphon has 4 doors on it. If you caddy all 4 of those, the only 2 places they can enter freely, unless you put a spike on it, are the stairs. Similarly, it's the same deal with the 2 buildings that are on each side of the middle building in Lava Siphon. And finally, another place you can do this is in Broken Moon, where you have the giant pyramid with the laser beam shooting out of it. You can now play like the middle compartment and then have the 2 outside doors caddied, and you have that entire side of the building to yourself now. So it doesn't affect how you play Catalyst, but it does affect where you play Catalyst. And I think that's one of the most important things with her doors. All right. So alternatively, I wouldn't recommend spreading your stuff out too thin. Let's say you're playing streamer building. You don't want to be trying to play 3 floors. Maybe only play the 1st and 2nd floor, because like I mentioned earlier, if you have a door caddy on the 1st floor, the enemy's going to kick it down. You're not going to have line of sight because you're maybe on 2nd or 3rd floor, and they're just going to walk right in. So it really doesn't do too much besides give you an audio cue. All right, so another thing, this is very important. As a Catalyst main, tell your teammates to keep the doors closed. I've died in a ranked game before because I had a teammate not close a door, and so when I went back to where I thought I was safe to heal because the door would be closed, there was a pathy there, sitting there, and he just killed me. So do make sure you keep your doors closed. Literally, it's my rule number 1 of all time. All right, I'm going to talk about one quick thing with Catalyst, and that is door priority. What happens when you catalyze a door? There's this very interesting thing is if an enemy is following you and they're trying to push through, they are going to more than not actually push through your door. So for instance, this is the door I wanted to do it on. Let's say I run through this door and let's say I caddy it and close it. If an enemy is right behind me and they're kind of like this, they get to open this door, just as you saw there. So the player has priority over the door, even if it's cat and even if they're an enemy. So just keep that in mind that you might want to consider getting to a door, or you might want to consider to caddy or not to caddy a door, depending on if you know the enemy's going to be there or not. Because what's going to happen, and I've had this happen a lot, is where I try and get to a door and I'm caddying it, but as I'm caddying it, they're pushing through that door and they're shooting me. And I don't have my weapon out because my hands are in the air. So that's just something to think about when you're going to approach a door and you know someone else is going to meet you there. All right, so that's the basics of the door. I have an advanced tip later on to talk about, but we're going to move on to the spikes. So spikes, you get 3 of them. Way larger area. I freaking love it. One thing to notice about spikes is use them as recon on choke points and just in general, right? If I'm playing and trying to shoot the guy over here or there's a team, I want to make sure I have an audio cue to let me know that there's enemies nearby. Because one of 2 things will happen. Either they're going to shoot the spike, they're going to walk through the spike, or they're going to waste their horizon cue going over my spike. And even though they're going to be in the air and have no audio and yada, 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 I'll at least hear the horizon cue for sure. I hope. So it's always good if you're playing a certain area or if you're out in the open, right, to have those spikes behind you as an audio cue for yourself of, hey, there's enemies behind me. I do like that they added this too. I didn't even notice. They added a little blue orb through the wall. I like that. All right. Another thing. There's a couple of different ways now that the spikes are bigger to hold the door. So I used to say, even if the catalyst spike doesn't damage people through the door, this is relatively the way you still want to play, is going through the door like this. However, if you have a situation where you have a window and a door next to each other, I would recommend playing it horizontally, because if they break this window, they aren't going to want to jump through because there's catalyst spikes there. But more importantly, now that the spike is actually thicker, what this allows is they can't kick it without getting slowed from either side. And so now that it's thicker and it allows for that, you might want to consider placing your spikes horizontally through the doors, so that way you can cover more space within your own building, depending on what the layout is. So that's, about placement. One other thing too is now that you get 3 spikes, and don't be afraid to possibly even stack spikes on top of each other. So you can already see, like, imagine we're playing on Kings Canyon, for instance, or we're playing inside Grandma Building or something like that. If I have 2 spikes that already cover this much space in the building, place a 3rd one. Like if there's a door right here, for instance, and I'm the enemy, and I can see and shoot this spike, I might see and shoot the spike and want to run in instantly, but I'll get instantly hit by the other tactical. So overlapping these, I think is a lot better and might be a potential strategy when playing in buildings that are relatively small in footprint. Another thing too is I think in streamer building now, I obviously am not in streamer building, but I think you can place 1 spike at the bottom of the zip line and it now actually covers like the whole space. That's kind of my assumption, is that it's large enough now to do that, because originally it used to cover like partially the space and maybe an enemy could land, close to the wall where there's not a spike there. So placing your spike on zip lines or at the end of stairs is very important. And by stairs, the way you want to be placing catalyst spikes on stairs is like this. You want to place this at the top because you want the length to go down the stairs. Because if I'm an enemy and I'm trying to, let's say there's an invisible wall here or something. If there's a wall, I have to peek and shoot that spike out. So if I'm catalyst up here and I know that they're shooting my spike, I can just peek them and shoot them because they're not aiming at me. They're aiming at the spike. So that's another thing to think about. Having spikes on stairs is really useful, in my opinion, and why you want to be playing on a higher floor in a building if there is a second or third floor. All right, one thing to note, now that we have a 1 second delay, and I'll get into the perk that makes it even quicker, don't be afraid to be aggro with your spikes. You can now throw them a lot more straight. You don't have to like arc them as much. And another thing is, besides practicing your aim, to like shoot it at the door over there, so like this. Yeah, instead of like being able to aim it like that, you know, I used to have to go like this to do it. So it's a lot better that they have allowed us to, you know, basically have a more direct line of where we want to throw the spike. Do be aware though of lips and edges around doorways. Sometimes your catalyst spike can get caught on that, and I hopefully believe will happen a whole lot less, just for the fact that the arc is a lot more straight, meaning that you won't have to arc it as high and have to guess, oh, is this going to hit the trim of the door and set above the door, or is it actually going to hit the door? So another thing to talk about with catalyst spikes is, let's say you're playing a box or a pillar and you have an enemy on the other side. I would recommend throwing a spike here like this. And the reason for that is, if I'm the enemy and I'm trying to play this space here, my space has been cut in more than half, really, because she's got this side too. So about, I would say 60% of the space that I once had to play around is now cut off. And not only that, but let's say I'm Catalyst and I'm going up against my enemy. What I can do here is I can just swing, place a spike like that. Obviously, you don't want to swing super far out like that, but I want to make sure I place the spike in the right place. But let's say, you know, you go like this. Now the enemy only has this amount of space to play. And so being able to just throw your spikes on boxes and just control the area in which the enemy is able to play is very, very useful when you're playing in more out open spaces or places that have cover, like this box, for instance. Just be aware the enemy can climb on top of the box, but you should be relatively well at hearing it since you're right next to her. If it's a column, obviously she can't climb up onto it. I'm assuming it's Wraith. Perks. No, that's next, after walls. So for the wall now goes through Gibby Bubble, it goes through Docks, it goes through Newcastle. It also goes up steeper slopes, such as this one, I guess. I don't really know the extent to how extreme it can be, but I would recommend placing your cat wall like this if you're ever rotating or if you're going to split a building. And the reason why I say split a building is because now the Catalyst's wall can go through doors, which is huge because it means you don't have to open the door to throw the wall up. So I'm going to get my ult back right here, and I'm going to go over here. And let's say I'm trying to split an enemy because he's on this side. I can come in, shoot the enemy, not have to worry about his two teammates that are on this side, and take a 1v1 or 3v1 if your entire team's with you. So that is a very good quality of life thing that they've added to Catalyst, that they can go through walls and use that, you know, to split or rotate. Horizontally, you'll want to be placing it, I would recommend, if you're at a choke, in order to cut the enemies off. Like if you have a ring coming in towards you and you have enemies that are also coming towards you, you can throw your wall up on the choke. Another way you might want to consider using it is for final ring. That one's pretty obvious. You can throw this thing out like 15 meters from where you are, so you can actually stay with your team and throw the wall up instead of having to, you know, walk all the way over here and then potentially get a G7'd by an enemy and throw up the wall there. So being able to place your wall horizontally, very, very good change. I'm glad they made it. It allows you to isolate the enemies so they fight amongst themselves a lot better. Let's talk about perks. So for perks for Catalyst, what I would recommend personally for me is the Soul Piercer, because it has activation and more damage, meaning you can be more aggressive with it and just throw it at people's feet and it'll start ticking them. And then Pharaoh Door. I'll talk about why you may or may not want to do it. Again, it's personal preference over the 5 seconds of the wall, because 5 seconds is, you know, enough to pop a res or a bat. But Pharaoh Door, the reason why I started going back to this perk is because the one thing it does do is it allows your teammates to play off the door. Because if this is just a 2-kick catalyzed door, my teammate is going to break it down, shoot the enemy, and then they have to actually move from where they were because they can't play this angle anymore because it's a wide open door. So being able to reconstruct the door allows my teammate to open the door and close it on the enemy when they're shooting them, which is very useful. Again, though, if you're playing as a team that rotates a lot, you might want to consider having 5 extra seconds on your ult to pop a bat, have more time to move, maybe get a shield swap off or something, or stick a res. For hidden spikes, the only thing about hidden spikes that I would ever recommend you would want to choose it over the other is if you're playing on a map or you play around buildings that are heavily vertical and you're playing the bottom floor. In other words, if there's an enemy up here, and let's say this is, you know, there's a zip line or something, or maybe you are just playing on low ground, and you place your spikes here and here, the enemies aren't really going to be able to see it or pay attention to it. But at the same time, if they see your spikes, I mean, they're not going to be able to shoot them. They don't activate unless they're right next to them. So when it comes to this perk, the only other possible strat I can think about is, let's say you have someone like break down the door like this, or they're actively like pushing you really hard. Because let's say I'm standing on this door and a grenade gets flown, and then I got like a Bangalore shooting me or something, and I need to back up around cover like this. The Bangalore might be inclined to just look at me and try and shoot me, and she might just try and chase me, and then she'll start walking on my spikes without knowing it, because she won't be paying enough attention to realize there's spikes there. So that's, again, it's a very niche, and I really wouldn't consider it over the other perk, because the other perk is just, in my opinion, so much better. It literally prevents, you know, Octanes, Pathies, Horizons, anyone with movement to just slide into your building, like for free, basically. I've had a stream earlier on this week where I had a Pathy slide literally right over my spikes, and nothing happened to him. Had I had this perk with me, it would have helped. So just keep that in mind for why you might want to choose one perk over the other. And again, I already kind of gave the reasons for why you might want to choose this over this. All right, with that being said, we are going to go into some more advanced tips with Catalyst. And I need to not pick this perk, and I'm going to kick a door down real quick. So one of the most important things, I would argue, is, let's say you're playing inside of a building, or maybe you're playing outside. The reason why you might like using this door is because, if you know, an enemy might want to kick it down, or they might be looking at it, and then as soon as they turn away, you can just pre-fire them, right? So if I have this guy and he's like looking at my door, and then he's like, oh, you know what, I'll just go around to the other door, see if there's a better spot to get open. As soon as he turns around, you can just shoot him in the back. Similarly, let's say he's kicking the door down. If he kicks it once, he might be inclined to kick it again and kick it down. In that case, once you see him raise his foot, you just break it down and start shooting at him while he's in the animation of meleeing a door that isn't there. So that's a huge thing, is door pre-firing.
No more sitting on those
one other thing is canceling animations. So one thing you can do is, this one's a little bit more difficult than the other animation cancel that I have here, but you can go up to a door and cancel your animation as you're caddying it. You just have to wall jump and not be like a bum like me. Let me see if I can get it this time. Nope, I'm bad. Anyway, I have pulled it off before where you can slide as you're caddying a door and kind of cancel the animation. You kind of saw it there when I was mantling up. I technically did cancel it, but you can also wall jump and cancel it. Another thing you can wall cancel is the animation for throwing up your wall. So if I'm trying to throw up a wall here, boom, got my weapon out. Instead of having to go through the entire animation, which I think is like it feels like 3 seconds, feels like forever. So being able to wall bounce and get your gun back out is really, really useful in fights. So Another thing I would argue that if you're playing Catalyst, you'll want to learn how to do is what I like to call backdooring. It doesn't matter what perk for Catalyst you have, but what that basically means is you are running and there's someone chasing you, and you hit the caddy as you're going through the door. You can also do this with doors like this. It's just a little bit more slow because you have to turn around and close the door. And you can see there, like, I didn't even get it because I holstered my weapon. Let me see if I can do that like this. No, I missed the timing. There is a timing to it, I will say. But make sure you practice being able to smoothly get into it. You can see I almost got it there. I got out of range. A little unfortunate, but learn how to backdoor. Very useful. Again, it might be a reason why you want to not pick the Pharaoh door perk, is because then you don't have to worry about reclosing the door. You actually can just hit it and keep running. All right, let's see what else we got here. I talked about the fact that they reduced the pitch. This is actually really good because instead of aiming super high up and potentially hitting any trim, you can now just aim at the door. So being able to throw it at the door is a lot more accessible now. You don't have to spend too much time trying to aim it. Another thing is think about funneling when you're playing Catalyst. So if I'm playing this building, for instance, and I have, this door caddied, I have that door caddied, I have this door caddied. The only possible way that an enemy can get up here is through this window, through that door opening, and if I have that hard light unlocked or locked, and that window. So the reason why I say you want to funnel is because it reduces the line of sights that you have to play. Simply put, if I have this area caddied and I'm playing up on top, the enemy has to walk through this space here or through that doorway to get to me, and I can just hold this angle here and wait for them to try and enter the building. And if they try and enter through that window, pretty easy, I just look at the window. So reducing your line of sights for the amount of possibilities that they can come at you is really good, aka funneling. Another tip that's very important as Catalyst is don't be afraid to give up space in your building. If you're playing 2 floors on a building, don't be afraid to give up one of those floors. The reason being is it's kind of a little bit of like a bait. So let's say I have a spike here and I have a spike here and I'm playing down here on this bottom floor. And let's say, for instance, I get shot for 150. I need to back up because I don't know who's coming through this door and trying to get an angle here. And so I'm back up here and I'm trying to heal. You're giving the enemy space as soon as they take down your spikes. However, what that means is that, again, now we're in a situation where I've funneled them in. I've kind of dragged them into this situation where they have to push through this one angle. And similarly, if I have a spike on me in the pocket, I can just throw it down the stairs and make it even harder for them to try and push me. As Catalyst, what you want to do is you kind of want to make a base that's kind of flexible, so that way when people actually break a certain door down or they push from a certain angle, you're able to back up, make your defense a lot more hard to push, and be able to punish them essentially for coming into your building. So another thing that kind of goes along with this is you want to have what I like to call a stronghold position. That basically means is you want to hold a position in which you know for sure that if I get damaged, I can go pop a bat here, I can go pop a med kit here. Again, it's why I say, hey, you want the doors to be closed, because if there are doors in that area, you're going to want them closed so you can pop that bat or med kit. Because if I get damaged for 150 here, and I climb up and I'm sitting here, and let's pretend there's a wall here, I can sit behind this, have my spike there, and know exactly when they're going to push up, and know if I need to cancel my battery. So, very useful thing to know when you are playing inside of a building is how to funnel people into a particular situation in which it helps you. Another thing that goes along with this is that this is kind of a method I and a friend of mine created called Snapping Turtle, and we use this a whole lot in ranked. So Seer, I know he's like a least pick legend right now. However, he's the only legend that has the silence ability. And what that allows you to do as Catalyst and as Seer is, let's say you have a team on your building and they're trying to figure out a way to get in. if an enemy on if you see as seer the enemy come by himself to a door to try and like kick it down or like throw a nade, well, maybe not throw a nade in this case, but let's say he's trying to kick it down or he's trying to like watch to see if you open it and he wants to win the pre-fire, what you can do is you can have your seer teammate scan him, and then you and your seer teammate just walk out and shoot him, take the 2v1, and walk back in, and then heal up and rinse repeat. I've had it work so many times in a building, and is why I like having a seer on my team, because he literally negates anyone from escaping the fact that they're taking a 2v1, and it gives us such an advantage. Wraiths can't, queue out. Horizons can't queue up and pop a battery. Octanes can't stim. Ramparts can't have Sheila out. I mean, it's having a Sierra on your team with a Catalyst, in my opinion, is a really good synergy to have. And again, I call this method with my buddy Snapping Turtle, because you're basically going out and then you're coming back in. You're snapping out and you're coming back in. So this is kind of the part, I guess, where we start talking about ranked. So some other things about ranked is you want to heavily play ring. You want to always make sure you know where the next ring is. You want to make sure or be able to predict in a way where the final ring is going to end. And you're going to want to be able to pick a building that suits your needs as Catalyst. So again, we've kind of talked about the way in which you might want to prefer to play Catalyst, which is in a 1-story or 2-story building. And you want to be able to lock it down, and you want to find that position in ring. If the final ring doesn't have any buildings, play high ground. Just play high ground. Have your spikes on places where people can get head peeks. Like if I'm playing here and there's a possible way people can come up the hill or something and get a head peek standing right here, place a spike there. It works as recon, like I had mentioned earlier. Let's see. Another thing is you have three spikes now. So you could potentially, on a 3-door building, have a spike on every single door and make it near impossible for people to just breach in, except for hard light, wherever those are on the buildings. So be able to be flexible when people are pushing your building, and don't be afraid to give up space, but also be able to play the building going in and out of it, like a Snapping Turtle. One more thing to note is that a really, really cool thing that I like to do as Catalyst every once in a while. It's very rare that this happens, but that is play the outside of the building. It might seem counterintuitive, but there are some instances where ring is like right where this zip line is, for example, and it's going to end right over here, and there's a team playing in here. I literally will just be like, guys, let me caddy up real quick. And I will hold them out of the building, and they'll die to ring unless they want to kick the door down. But it's already, it's basically inevitable because I'll be having spikes there. The doors are 4 kicks. And so it makes it really, really annoying when you're, as the enemy team, playing in a building that you think is good because it has cover, and then realizing that you're getting locked out and you cannot go through. So really, really huge that you are able to play the outside of the building and recognize when it's necessary to do so. All right. I think I've covered a lot of things. One other thing, this comes to playing with the wall. If you're playing with a wall like this, or you're rotating, and let's say you forgot to throw it horizontally or something, or let's just say that you're pushing an enemy, I will throw up my wall like this nonetheless to cut off line of sight, and I will do what I like to call wall surfing, which I feel like is kind of unanimous with most Catalyst mains that are out there, and that's just literally run across the wall and just keep peeking in and out when you need to swap sides. And another thing that you'll want to do when you have a Catalyst wall up, once I get it all juiced up here, is this other method that I call wall peeking. And that's when you're doing kind of the same thing, you're wall surfing, almost. Maybe actually, you're not peeking as much. The idea of wall peeking is you throw up your wall like this, and let's say the team is right here. You're going to go up through a good amount of your wall. And again, the enemy is roughly about right here. And you're going to just kind of slowly be silent for a little bit, because you don't want to tell them exactly where you are, and then you're just going to peek, and you're going to shoot them, and you're going to come back in the wall. You only maybe want to do that once or twice, and when you do, don't peek the same spot. Like, go in one area, move down, and then peek the other. Because what that ends up doing is if your teammates are right over here with you when you're throwing up that wall, you're taking the attention from the enemies onto you and allowing your teammates to push up with the enemies not looking at them. So it can be a very useful thing to wall peek and be able to play off like that.
Hey guys, Editing Tabasa here. One more thing you can do with the wall that I just thought about while editing this video was if you're running away from someone, no matter where you are, you can always throw your wall horizontally at your feet. They might end up running into your wall, but nonetheless you will be able to block their line of sight and their way of following you. If you're still watching this video, comment bungalow. Alright, let's get into the interactions.
Going on to interactions though, these are kind of some last tidbits, but they are quite important just in case you run into these particular legends. First thing is bang smoke does not the bang smoke when it's electrified doesn't get rid of your traps unless if they're activated. So if I have a trap like this where it's not activated, if Bangalore shoots that thing and it's not activated because she's 10 meters or however far away, it won't disappear, which is really great. Another thing to note with Bangalore is that, and I can actually maybe even try it here if I can get to. Well, shoot, I just need to switch to Bangalore real quick, don't I? If I'm Bangalore and I'm throwing smokes out, right, and I'm trying to push you or I'm trying to stick a res for my team, what I can do is I can throw up a wall and it'll get rid of the smoke. Now, obviously, the timing looked a little bit iffy there, but I have done this multiple times on multiple occasions. The wall does get rid of Bangalore smoke. It does not get rid of caustic smoke, only Bangalore smoke. And so you can use your wall to diffuse the smoke and basically shut down Bangalore from, hiding somewhere in the smoke. Another thing, Crypto, Vantage, and Sparrow can see you through your wall depending on what they do. So if Crypto has the power coupling perk and his drone is on your side of the wall, he can see you through the wall. Another thing is if Vantage tags you with her ultimate, she can still track you through the wall because you're highlighted. And then lastly, Sparrow, the way he tracks you through the wall is if he has the perk where he scans you and can run towards you more quickly, what he can do is if he does scan you on the other side of the wall, he can start running in what he might believe is the correct direction of you and get a diamond right where you are. So just be aware that those three legends can see through your wall if the right conditions align. One other thing to note is if you're playing against a seer, you can still use your passive while you're getting seer scanned. So if I'm silenced right now, you can actually close the door. If you don't believe me, I have a TikTok on it. I show a bunch of different interactions. And then finally, one more thing to note is that if you're altar, you can place, and I'll actually show here to demonstrate. Oh my gosh, pick altar. If you're altar, oh, did they fix this? No, it was this. Okay. Yeah, so you can't place a portal on a caddy door like this, but you can place a altar portal on this caddy door, and you can even break it down like this. So you can do, I don't know, some weird shenanigans with that as you please. And personally for me is why I like having an altar sometimes on my team. But the main reason is because if you have an altar, she could throw a port that's further down, you play your door, she goes through her portal, you go through her door, and you shoot the enemy. That's usually why I like having an altar on my team. Anyway, guys, that is, I believe, everything that I have for this guide that I can think of. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone who's interested in seeing Catalyst and all the potential that she has in her. I do really like these buffs. I'm excited to play her. I'll be streaming tonight, 9, maybe even earlier, maybe 8 Central. I stream almost every day playing Catalyst, and I really appreciate if anyone came out to support me. And thank you guys so much. I will see you in the next one. Peace.